I count it a privilege to be able to speak into your life. Um, uh, People who want freedom, people who are willing to work for freedom, and in this case here, in this group, people who get up really early to grow, to become the person God wants them to be. There's an awful lot of respect from me to you, and so yeah, my prayer would be that this would be worth you getting up. Um, so yeah, so check this out. Listen to yourself. You've heard people say that. Listen to yourself, meaning listen how you're talking. You're making excuses or only Lord knows what they're saying, but listen to yourself. Some years ago, as I've been working with people in recovery for quite some time, and I work with people exclusively in sexual addiction recovery. For years, I've referred people out who have drugs or alcohol addiction. I don't feel qualified. It's not my specialty, and this one here has only become kind of a focus of mine in the last, say, 10 years or so. But I've worked with hundreds, and uh, and I've listened. I've listened, and it's interesting because you start to hear things that keep coming back. And you've heard me talk about emotional adolescence. Well, what I found is that over and over again, there is a talk that addicts do that is consistent. And the deeper the addiction that they're still in, the more likely they're talking like an addict. So I've said that's addict talk. Somebody in my office is talking and explaining something, and I go, well, just so you know, that's addict talk. Meaning that's the mindset of a person who's still addicted when they talk like that. So when I say as we start, listen to yourself. The journey is you becoming aware, self-aware of how you operate and how you justify how you're living, how you're explaining your world, how you're making excuses or whatever for, well, this is so hard, people don't get it, et cetera, et cetera. But it's addict talk. And so I'm calling you to tune up the ability to listen to yourself in what you're saying in your recovery journey. Because these are bad habits to overcome. For many years now, you've heard me use this phrase. I really like it. Boys make excuses, men make changes. It's time to grow up. And if you slide to the bottom, I just love this scripture here in 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, an addict. When I was a child, I spoke and thought and reasoned as a child. Put addict in there too. When I was an addict, I spoke, thought, and reasoned as an addict. But when I grew up, I put away addict things. I put away childish things. It's time to grow up. So these are bad habits to overcome. I challenge you to listen to yourself and examine the words coming out of your mouth and the explanations you give in life. There's actual phrases that I will say that will go, oh my goodness, I use that one. That's what I want you to be thinking, because there's likely room for you to grow up. So there's these 5 things that I want you to consider. First of all, your excuses are flowing. You're the king of excuses. You're full of explanations, minimizations, justifications. You can help people understand, and in so doing, you often make it seem not quite as problematic where you're at, what you're doing. You actually can find a way to blame other people, blame even their spouse. Frankly, I heard that in a conversation with someone yesterday. Well, you don't understand how hard it is, to live with my wife. Do you understand? Listen to yourself. You're saying, I have this problem and that she's the reason. Well, talk about immaturity. Anyway, so what happens is over and over again, this person refuses to take responsibility for the nature and scope of the mess that they've made. The whole undertone is defensiveness, justification, excuses, and this is where we've got to change. Here's some of the words. The common talk of the addict is, "Oh, you just don't understand," or "It's not that bad," or "Other guys in the group are far worse than this." Um, but excuses, and it could be, well, you didn't have an upbringing like I had. Or I didn't ask to be introduced to this, when I was 10, as if I wanted this. Do you understand that the excuses can come kind of like 57 flavors of ice cream? You can get 57 flavors of excuses, but if you hear yourself explaining why it's not your problem, look at, even if someone introduced it to you, even if someone sexually abused you, frankly, the abuse is not your fault. Or if someone introduced you to porn when you were 8 and they were 15 or whatever, and part of it was this exposure and everything, okay. But it was not your fault, but it is still your responsibility to deal with it. So first of all, you're an addict and talking like an addict if your excuses are flowing. Number 2, your effort is fading. Well, first of all, bonus, because you're here, you're listening. You didn't make an excuse and skip this morning. But the effort is fading if you're an addict. You're weak on the follow through. You kind of go, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll join regroup. Yep, I'm coming. And you think that you should get a Nobel Prize or something because you've attended for like 2.5 months or something. You see, it's addict talk. If you're, well, what more do I have to do? Or even as Tim and I were talking this morning, I thought of another ones that aren't even in your list of common talk for the person whose effort is fading. Um, that's a lot to expect, or boy, it's so early. I mean, Tuesday morning, it's so early. I got to get to work, and okay. But of course, what happens over time, you find yourself doing less and less and less of the recovery work that you committed to do to overcome your addiction. You say, yes, I will do this. Yes, I'll get the material. Yes, I'll do the 12-step program. Some of you haven't even got the books yet. And so you overpromise, you underdeliver, or you say, yes, you'll commit to it, and you don't follow through. You're simply not doing the work. That's addict pattern. When your effort is fading and you try to talk your way out of it, taking the easy route, the lazy way. You don't consistently put the work in to grow your faith, to grow in the recovery. And usually part of this, you keep relaxing. So you say things like this: well, what more do I have to do? Look at I've gone to counseling, and or I'm doing everything I can. Well, frankly, there's a whole bunch of people aren't doing everything they can, because this group could be 40 to 45 people, and we're 25 or so this morning. So there's a whole bunch who are not doing everything they can, or they'll do lines like, I plan on doing that soon. I'm going to do that soon. And it's kind of like a promise still out in the future. And then, well, yeah, I haven't got to that yet, yeah. Or do you realize how hard I'm working, And so ask yourself, if week after week after week, you're doing no actual recovery work beyond coming to this meeting, you're still in addict talk. I mean, it's finished the 12 steps. There's 12 steps, not 200 steps. You do one, there's only 11 left. You do two, there's only 10 left. You do three, there's only 9 left. You get the plan? There's 12 steps, not 3,000. It's doable. So your effort is fading. That's addict talk. Thirdly, your empathy is feeble. And in all fairness, this may be the hardest one for an addict because an addict by nature is really self-absorbed and they can't appreciate the pain that you've caused your spouse, the pain you've caused to others, the disruption you've made to your family. You see the results of it and you don't like the results, but you're really not good at feeling with people. Because addicts by nature are selfish. They stay with the addiction because it's all about them, for them, and they're committed. They're committed to just staying with the addiction. And so addicts are selfish, and they don't see the big picture well. You see your picture well. You see your pain. You see your frustration. You see how hard it is for you, but you don't see the big picture well, and how much your addiction has hurt the other people in your world, especially your spouse. You've been so preoccupied for so long that your knee-jerk reaction is to filter everything said and done through the lens of how this is affecting you. You don't think about how it's affecting somebody else. Empathy is so low that when you have a discussion going on, your first thought is, how's that going to affect me? Rather, a person who's maturing and not doing addict talk, not the emotional adolescent, is going to ask your partner, your spouse, about their pain, listen, and let it sink in the damage you've caused. But you'll hear this. This is some of the lines, the addict talk. Well, why can't you just trust me? I don't like being controlled. When they complain about how you're acting out hurts them, and I don't like when you meet this person or you go this place or you read this stuff or whatever. It puts them in, and so you say, I don't like being controlled. You shouldn't control me. Let me do my own recovery and all this kind of talk. And a matter of fact, addicts, when a spouse is triggered by something you're doing, and they say something, and then the addict goes, well, do you realize how your triggers hurt me? When you bring that up, that really hurts. It's not easy to hear that, this bothers you. You're like, how long do I got to keep hearing that this bothers you? Well, how about till you stop doing it? And I've actually, this last one here is, this is really difficult for me, which is, of course, looking through the lens of how it affects you. And you're looking for sympathy rather than giving empathy. And so it's addict talk if your empathy is feeble. Fourthly, your emotions are flooded. See, for so long, your emotions have governed your life. And so you do whatever you need to do in your addiction recovery. With regard to your addiction, you used to do whatever you needed to do to get rid of the pain. And so what happens is you complain a lot. Your pain is the focus. It's the poor me talk. For years, you've soothed your own hurt, your own frustrations, and other negative emotions. You've soothed it by going to your addiction for relief. And you justified the acting out behaviors, the PMO cycle, porn, masturbation, orgasm. You justified it because of the pain you were in. What else am I supposed to do? And you talk about how hard it is. You whine a lot. You feel sorry for yourself. And you let these negative emotions rule you, and they keep you in your addiction. The famous Dr. Stephen Stosny said this to me when I had the TV show. He said this on the show. He said, Base your decisions on what you value, not on what you feel. Base your decisions on what you value, not on what you feel. I know addicts who will actually shift into either tears, like feel sorry for me, or they go into anger and they scare the heck out of their spouse. And so their spouse backs off and they go, there, now they've backed off. I have more space. I don't want them to control me and whatever. And so, blame, anger, tears, manipulative tears, frankly, because the emotions are still how hard this is for you. Of course, that's the heart of emotional adolescence. Remember, the definition of or explanation of emotional adolescence is the person gets addicted to porn, at 12, 13, 14, and instead of maturing and growing as a man, growing as a person, and learning to take responsibility, learn to correct behavior, learn to apologize, instead of those maturing life characteristics, the addiction flattens them emotionally. They don't continue to grow. They're 50 years old and they're talking and acting like they're a 14-year-old who's just making excuses and explaining away their behavior. So the common talk of the addict when their emotions are flooding is, you know how hard this is for me, or you're asking too much, or when's it going to be good enough? Like, really, what do I got to do? And it's all about them, and they're trying to say, well, I don't want to be called out. I don't want to be falling short again. And I actually have seen the addict talk so powerful in emotions that they actually have tears that are expressing their hurt and their pain, and they're crying about, you don't realize how hard this is, and of course there's no empathy, but their emotions just flood. I also have addicts that go into anger and justify and explain and attack. Like get a hold of it. Ask God to help you so your emotions are flooded. And it's addict talk when finally your exactness is feeble. That's another way of saying you lie. You lie about lots of things. You lie. That's addict talk. You've heard me say about addicted to lying that a person who is addicted to porn or acting out in some way is also addicted to lying. That for most addicts, it's all about secrets. It's all about isolation. It's all about being alone and not being found out. They don't like telling their whereabouts. They don't like explaining their behavior. They keep secrets. You are still in addiction if you keep secrets. And so your exactness about your life, what's going on, is flexible. Truth is massaged. You lie. You stretch the truth to fit your needs. You stretch the truth to keep them satisfied, to keep them happy. Your word becomes fluid. It kind of flows where it needs to go, and it's not exact. It flows where you need it to go. You start lying even to yourself. That's the sign of a real addict. They got themselves fooled that what they're doing is fine, and they justify crazy behavior. So they justify lying to others because they're lying to themselves. Your word, frankly, means nothing. Your spouse can't trust what you say. That's why we do polygraphs with some people. I got 4 or 5 right now I'm working with where there's a polygraph pending. Taken 2 recently just through a polygraph experience. Why? Because their whole life has been a lie. Your spouse can't trust what you say. What you say isn't what really happens. What you say isn't what's going on. Secrets, secrets, secrets. And you maximize what you can talk about, and you talk about blah, 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 about things that are safe for you to talk about. So you sound like you're really volunteering and really open, but you're manipulating the truth because it's overshadowing the fact that there's things you're doing that you're covering up. You can't look at yourself in the mirror and say you're being honest. You certainly can't look Jesus in the mirror because he knows. So the common talk of those that are in the pattern of inexactness, which is meaning my word for lying, because of course it had to be 5 E's here. I didn't want to hurt her anymore, so I didn't want to tell her. I didn't think it would bother you. Um, that's what I meant. I didn't say it, but that's what I meant to say. Um, or they go, I can't do anything right, going to poor me when someone catches them in the lie. But for most addicts, a lie triggers them just like a relapse does. Because the relapse and the lies were so connected that it's not just about the relapse, it's about the lies as well. So, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. When your wife is troubled by something, listen to yourself. Do you own it? Do you accept that you're falling short, hard as it is? Do you own it? Apologize? And put in some serious plans to make changes? Because when I was a child, I spoke and thought and reasoned like a child, but when I grew up, I put away childish things. And if you'll allow me, when I was an addict, I spoke and thought and reasoned as an addict. But when I grew up, I put away addict talk. It's time to grow up. It's time to grow up. May God give you grace to hear yourself. Whether it's excuses that are flowing, the effort that is fading, the empathy that is feeble, the emotions that are flooding, or the exactness that is flexible because you are lying a lot. That's all addict talk. These are bad habits to overcome because you need to do it. Boys make excuses, but men make these changes. May God help us go in this direction in a way that will fully honor the Lord. All right.